Setting up the presentation requires a very aggressive, repetitive approach. Now, it's mandatory to keep emphasizing, to keep using the same topics, the same information, to keep adding value to convince the customer. Now, there's going to be a lot of situations where you're going to be repetitive and you're going to keep using the same information over and over and over. You're doing it in a way where you're adding value to the option. I'll give you an example. Let's just imagine that there's a situation where a customer does not have insurance. So I may use risk through the whole sales conversation. I may emphasize that driving without insurance could potentially put them in a critical situation, a legal and financial difficulties. Also, a ticket's going to cost them $700 to $1,000. So I may discuss this even within the qualifying process. I may bring it up again when I'm reviewing the coverages, letting them know that liability is technically the coverage that the law requires, and technically that's what's required by the state of California when you're driving a vehicle. So if they get pulled over, they're going to be involved in a situation where they're going to have to pay for not having insurance. So I may elaborate a little bit more on getting a ticket. Within the justifying factors, I may introduce tickets again. Because if you get pulled over, you get a ticket, that ticket is going to affect the actual rate. As I'm reviewing and adding value to the presentation, I may use real life examples. I may incorporate risk again. I may use the risk of driving without insurance and being in a position where they hit a vehicle and it's a life-changing event and they have to pay money out of pocket. I may create a story. I may constantly add value simply because I'm using the risk of driving without insurance as a way of closing the deal. So I may be repetitive. I may constantly review the information over and over. There's no negative whatsoever in being repetitive. As long as it makes sense, rephrase the information, create a story, use real life examples, elaborate on the concept that you're using, in this case, risk, until you actually convince them, until you actually obtain a yes. So being repetitive is not a negative thing. And the contrary, is mandatory. You have to be repetitive within the whole presentation. Maybe the first time you brought it up, the customer wasn't paying attention. Maybe the second time you brought it up, they really didn't understand. So maybe on the third introduction of the same topic and concept, they actually understood it. So once again, it's mandatory to be repetitive. Don't be afraid of being repetitive within the presentation. It's only going to help you get your point across.